on the Divine Lord for peace and prosperity of the whole mankind. Let us offer our salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of origins, the Supreme God Incarnate. Let us pray to Him to lead us from the unreal to the real, to lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of knowledge, to lead us from death to immortality. We are discussing profound teachings of Sri Ramakrishna taken from the Gospel. If we are really aspiring for spiritual achievement, we should apply all the instructions given by Sri Ramakrishna in our daily life. So it means one has to be aware of one's spiritual identity, which is really real, and one has to struggle to enter into spiritual realm if the person is really seeking peace and happiness in the world. As long as the mind is allowed to run after the things of the world, as long as the mind is allowed to enjoy the transitory pleasures of this world, one cannot expect real peace. The more the mind runs towards the world, the more you are away, far away from the Divine Lord. So Sri Ramakrishna instructs very clearly that we should turn ourselves to God. We must start our journey in the spiritual way, and everything about life becomes adjusted. Well, every page has got specific spiritual teachings, very useful for the spiritual seekers. Once a devotee by name Shrish, he came to Sri Ramakrishna. He was in a terrible state of helplessness. He was in a position from where he could not get out of it. So in that condition, he was coming to Sri Ramakrishna. Looking at him, Sri Ramakrishna could know what was going on in his mind and how he was restless and not happy. But he was fortunate enough to come to Sri Ramakrishna, the master of spiritual realization, the source of hope and assurance. As soon as Sri Ramakrishna saw him, he could understand everything about that person. And Sri Ramakrishna gives spiritual instruction how he should conduct himself hereafter. So Sri Ramakrishna tells in the gospel, surrender everything at the feet of God. This one line, this one ideal is enough for you to take to God. It gives you everything, not only spiritual knowledge, but also spiritual realization. That means you will get remarkable peace and happiness. Mayarpita mano buddhihi, Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Give your mind, intellect. Offer it to me. I take care of you. That means you have to become selfless. You have to learn the art of offering. It is very important in the spiritual life. First of all, you must be aware that you are seeking spiritual knowledge. So, with that attitude, everything becomes easy. But you have to be very strong and determined in order to pursue the spiritual path. Because all through previous lives and also the present life, how the mind is splitted into so many fragments, getting stuck up in all sorts of things going on in this world, as if this world is the only reality. So, suffering we are undergoing because we allowed our mind to go towards the unreal things, so we are suffering. There are so many ideals, but in a very simple and effective way, Sri Ramakrishna sets the ideal for us. Don't feel sorry that you can't practice meditation, you can't concentrate, you don't know how to offer worship. You may have all sorts of weaknesses, all sorts of difficulties, but Sri Ramakrishna says there is a way, and that way is surrender totally. Surrender yourself totally. What else can you do? And Sri Ramakrishna tells him further, give the Lord the power of attorney. Let him do whatever he thinks best. If you rely on a great man, he will never injure you. And Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of a cat and its kitten. The kitten of itself cannot cling to its mother. It lies on the ground and it cries, mew, mew, mew. Just it does that, that's all. It leaves everything to its mother. The mother cat is totally concerned about the kitten. Its whole mind is on it. It has taken full responsibility of guarding, nourishing the kitten. So it sometimes puts it on a bed, sometimes on the roof behind a pile of wood. She carries the kitten in her mouth hither and thither. The kitten doesn't even know how to cling to the mother. This is the finest example of surrendering totally. In the same way, Sri Ramakrishna says, what you have to do, just like the kitten, you have to cry to God with a yearning heart. That's all that you should do. God hears your cry and He can't keep Himself away, and He reveals Himself to you. So Sri Ramakrishna's instruction is very clear and it is very profound. So what is needed is, one has to surrender sincerely. There is another devotee. His name was Adhar Sen. Very great devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. He was relating the cause of his friend's grief to Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna said to him, all these things are in the Gospel. I am just taking from the Gospel so that this theme is explained nicely. The Master said to him, what can you do? And Sri Ramakrishna says further, be ready for death. Death has entered the house. You must fight him. How? With the weapon of God's holy name. God alone is the doer. And Sri Ramakrishna says, I say, O Lord, I do as thou dost through me. I speak as thou speakest through me. I am the machine and thou art the operator. I am the house and thou art the indweller. I am the engine and thou art the engineer. Give your power of attorney to God. Here also Sri Ramakrishna tells in the Gospel. One doesn't come to grief through letting a good man assume one's responsibilities. Let his will be done. A power of attorney is a legal document by which a principal delegates his or her powers to an agent to get a work done by the agent on the principal's behalf. The principal chooses the agent and with the latter's consent executes the power. The agent's prerogative to utilize the delegated power is limited to the extent of the delegation of power in the document. Now let us see how the spiritual power of attorney works. There is a famous incident of Girish Chandra Ghosh, one of the great disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, delegating power to Sri Ramakrishna. It is an instance of delegation of power in the realm of spirituality. Girish was also in a state of utter helplessness. He was totally disgusted about his own personality. He could not believe himself how he would behave, how his mind would react. He could not rely upon himself totally. When he was in that tremendous wretched state, Sri Ramakrishna assures him, well, this is the time for you to give your power of attorney. I take care of that. Don't worry. So, the story goes, Girish Chandra Ghosh surrendered himself completely to the master. He asked him for instruction as to what he should do from then on. Sri Ramakrishna said, do just what you are doing now. Hold on to God with one hand and to the world with the other. Think of God at least in the morning and evening. This sounded simple to Girish. But then he recalled that his life was so irregular that it would be hard for him to remember God at those stated hours. So he kept quiet. Sri Ramakrishna could read his mind and said, well, if you can't do that, then remember God before you eat and before you sleep. But Girish was reluctant to promise anything to Sri Ramakrishna. He knew that with his instinctive resistance to self-discipline and rules, he might not be able to keep even this simple observance. Then Sri Ramakrishna went into an ecstatic mood and said to him, so you are unwilling to agree even to this? All right. Give me your power of attorney. See, Sri Ramakrishna was tremendously gracious. This is a glaring example of the compassionate heart of Sri Ramakrishna, how he was showing his grace and blessings to Girish Chandra Ghosh. He knew Girish Chandra Ghosh was in a very wretched state. There cannot be a person wretched than him. It only showed that even the most wretched person on this earth can come to God. He is not barred from approaching God. God loves him also. So Sri Ramakrishna says, give me your power of attorney. Henceforth I will take full responsibility for you. You won't have to do anything at all. In the first place, unlike in the case of a legal power of attorney, here the agent demanded the power. And in the second place, instead of God delegating power to a devotee, here the devotee delegated power to God. Is it for nothing that Swamiji's father warned him not to be surprised at any incident in the world? Anything is possible. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the same idea has been given very nicely. Those persons who think of nothing else and worship me through meditation, the accession to and the maintenance of the welfare of such ever devout persons, I look after them. Yogakshemam vahamyaham. I take full responsibility of those people who have put faith in me, who have totally surrendered their hearts to me. The devotee who can delegate all his powers to the Lord in a bid to surrender himself at his lotus feet is of course taken care of by him. Girish Ghosh realized it many, many days later. The master not only advised Girish to give him the power of attorney, but he also taught him the basics of that mood. It has been stated in the Great Master, there's a book, Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, that one day in the course of some conversation, Girish said to the Master, I will do it in respect of a trifling matter. The Master said disapprovingly, look here, why do you say like that? I will do it. Why do you say like that? Suppose you can't do it, what then? You should say, I will do it if God wills so. I will do it if God wills so. So, how Sri Ramakrishna is training him in the spiritual path. It's remarkable. Then Girish felt, this is quite right. I completely placed on God all my responsibilities, and he has accepted it. I can do a thing only if he thinks it proper and good for me and allows me to do it. So, he later said, did I know then that so much lay hidden in this simple act of giving the power of attorney? Well, there's another point which we should understand when we are discussing this subject. Delegated suffering. How does God digest the fate of his devotees? Does he also not suffer on our behalf? The answer seems to be in the affirmative. If we accept others' debt, we have to pay for it. What is peculiar about it? The actual question is, why should one take up others' debt? As one is bound by the succession acts to shoulder the debts, in a similar way, God is duty bound to see that his creation does not suffer due to its inherent defects. Sri Ramakrishna assuringly asked, we are his children. If he does not look after us, then is it some neighbor's duty which they should do? Naturally, to perform his duty, God has to vicariously suffer for the devotees through implicit powers of attorney called surrender. There are instances of prophets or incarnations of God suffering vicariously for others. A concerned Sri Krishna tells, in all the three worlds there is nothing that is binding on me as duty. These are the words of Sri Krishna. Still, I am always engaged in work. He even invites everyone to dedicate all actions to him. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya. Dedicate all actions to me and then engage in duties. Engage yourself in duties. It is said, that's why the image of Mother Kali bent her neck one side to show Sri Ramakrishna that she also suffers the pain of cancer in his throat with him. Once a devotee had a nice experience. He was overdrunk and he was in great intoxication. He stopped his carriage before a house of ill fame and went up the stairs. At the head of the staircase, before the door, he found the figure of Sri Ramakrishna standing there. obstructing his way. See how God saves the devotee at the crucial time. A devotee of Krishna used to water a fig tree during summer days. He religiously adopted this pious work because while enumerating his superiority, Sri Krishna says that he is the holy fig tree among all trees. Ashwatha Sarva Vrikshanam, says in the Bhagavad Gita, in Vibhuti Yoga. One night, he dreamt that he had met one of his creditors from whom he bought a cricket bat on credit. Before he could remember and pay for it, the creditor died. Now in his dream, the creditor demanded his dues. It was in a dream, so he could not decide what he could do. On the other hand, the creditor was in a hurry, so he brought out his knife, cut out an equal portion of the devotee's skin and went away. In great agony, the dreaming devotee sat up in his bed in a half-awake state and felt his back with his hand. It was there intact. The next morning, the devotee went as usual to perform his regular work of watering the fig tree. With shuddering horror, pale and eyes aghast, he gazed at the tree and burst out in tears. He saw that a portion equal to the size of a cricket bat had been cut off from the bark of the tree. He took our infirmities and bore our diseases, the Bible observes. Srimad Ramayana is a rare saga of such a suffering for Sri Ramchandra and others. By the time Sri Rama could reconcile himself to the loss of the kingdom and his father, he was confronted with the loss of his wife, Sita. When after a long story of untold sufferings, he recovered Sita and was installed on the throne, there arose a whisper of scandal among the subjects, and he had to banish Sita to the woods. Again, a second ordeal that he imposed on her took away Sita from physical existence. Finally, Sri Rama had to banish Lakshman, his dearest brother, who followed him like his shadow, when only a few days more of life on earth remained for them. Sri Rama's ordeals and sufferings could come to an end only after he committed the final sacrifice of his body in the waters of the river Saryu. That much is the limit of duty for a duty. Duty for a duty-free God. They suffer vicariously. There's another instance, Srimad Ramanuj, great exponent of Vishishtadvaita, qualified monism. He was warned by his teacher not to disclose the sacred mantra to others. If he did so, the Guru warned him, he would go to hell. Ramanuja inquired, what will be the fate of those who would hear it? They will be liberated, replied the teacher. After that, Ramanuja couldn't afford to spare a moment. He ran to the nearby temple at Goshtipura, climbed atop the temple gate and shouted the mantra to the assembled multitude. Later on, when the Guru took him to task, Ramanuja replied, what if an insignificant being like me goes to hell in exchange for so many people's liberation? So, Atmanastu Kamaya Sarvam Priyam Bhavati. We love all because the same Atman resides in all. Buddha was ready to give up his life for a lamb. Acharya Shankar for a Kapalika. Though they embraced a whole life of vicarious suffering for no purpose of their own, they did not flinch from committing the supreme sacrifice. They say in the spiritual world, a guru has to suffer for the disciple. Sri Ramakrishna cautioned the gurus, saying, Guru must assume responsibility for the disciple's sin and suffering. Both the guru and the disciple are required to be sincere. Otherwise, it will be like a blind man leading another blind man to an almost sure destination of a ditch. Swamiji observed, Swami Vivekananda, it's very difficult to be a guru. The guru has to take the responsibility of the disciple. Another point with regards to this subject, suffering for ordinary people. An intimate example of such sharing of suffering can be found in the life of the Holy Mother. Like Kisa Gautami coming to Buddha for her dead child's life, a bereaved mother rushed to the Holy Mother, wailing for the death of her young son. The Holy Mother could not contain her own emotions. She burst out in a louder cry. So for some time both the mothers wailed. When finally the mother of the dead son started consoling the sobbing Holy Mother, a person who came later on could not make out among the two ladies whose son had actually died. Vicarious sufferings is therefore not a mystical fantasy, but a practical reality. A life guided by spiritual motivation aspires for a quicker termination of transmigrations. It actually happens that a spiritual aspirant minimizes the number of rebirths, that is, the number of different future bodies. Hence, the intensity of his suffering in this body grows. On the other hand, the scriptures say that all sufferings pertain to the body only and not to the Atman. As a result, the present body has to suffer for those future bodies whose prospects have been deliberately annulled. The suffering of the present body is, therefore, a vicarious suffering. Yet we do not hesitate to undergo them because we naturally feel they are our personal responsibility, having the same soul destined to reside in all these future bodies. If we go a little deeper, we find the same self reflected or apparently fragmented in all the souls, your soul, my soul, and all other souls. The unity felt in a community life is derived, though unknowingly, from this feeling. So we do not repent to adjust and suffer with one another. Adjustment is also a vicarious suffering for both the parties. Now the obvious question may be asked, how to get rid of this suffering? The only feeble answer that comes to our mind is by suffering only. It can't be avoided, but endured gloriously, even as all large-hearted people do. Swami Vivekananda, on the contrary, invited such suffering. He said, "May I be born again and again, and suffer thousands of miseries, so that I may worship the only God that exists, the only God I believe in, the sum total of all souls, and above all, my God the wicked, my God the miserable, my God the poor of all races, of all species, is a special object of worship, my worship. It is a special object of my worship. It is for this reason that he is competent to exhort. They alone live who live for others. The rest are more dead than alive. Even if all sufferings are not virtues, suffering for others, being noble, is bound to add to our virtues, which are not so easy to acquire. We can simply plunge into it without the least thought of calculations or bargain. All conditions of a power of attorney fail here, because it is no less a birthright to us than natural inheritance. It is the nature of our very being, and we should pledge to achieve it at any cost. All sacrifices or sufferings or austerities. But by selfish work, it is less a sacrifice than gathering impurities on our pure being. The Gita stresses the mutual cherishing, parasparam bhavayantaha, a sacrifice on the part of each member of the community. Those who are self-centered are the sinful, but those who are engaged in the welfare of others, sarvabhuta hitertaha, are the blessed. Service to others, therefore, is called yajna. The householders are advised by the Vedas to perform 5 great sacrifices. One is Brahma Yajna, that is imparting spiritual knowledge to aspirants. Second, Pitru Yajna, offering oblations to the ancestors. Then Deva Yajna, sacrificial offerings to gods. Then Bhuta Yajna, offering to all created beings. Then finally, Nriyajna, that means showing great hospitality to the guests who may seek shelter with the householder. If we can live up to it, life itself becomes religion. The secular life is transformed into a sacred life, which is envied even by the gods. So, how much of spiritual significance is there in this ideal? Surrender everything at the feet of God. Let us meditate on this subject deeply and take practical steps so that you really experience peace and joy in this life. Page 747. After a while, Sri Ramakrishna said to him very humbly, "Will you kindly bring him here?" He was referring to Girish. No, he was referring to Purna. Master Maharshi said hesitatingly, "Yes, sir, I shall send for him this very moment." Master said eagerly, "In Purna, I have reached the post." Was Sri Ramakrishna hinting that Purna was perhaps the last devotee of his inner circle? Sri Ramakrishna then described to Girish, M, and the other devotees his own experience of Mahabhava. Master said to the devotees, "My joy after that experience was equal to the pain I suffered before it." Mahabhava is a divine ecstasy. It shakes the body and mind to their very foundation. It is like a huge elephant entering a small hut. The house shakes to its foundation. Perhaps it falls to pieces. The burning pain that one feels when one is separated from God is not an ordinary feeling. It is said that the fire of this anguish in Rupa and Sanatana, the two great disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, scorched the leaves of the tree under which they sat. I was unconscious 3 days in that state. I couldn't move. I lay in one place. When I regained consciousness, the Brahmani was one of Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual teachers, took me out for a bath. But my skin couldn't bear the touch of her hand, so my body had to be covered with a heavy sheet. Only then could she hold me with her hand and lead me to the bathing place. The earth that had stuck to my body while I was lying on the ground had become baked. In that state I felt as if the plowshare were passing through my backbone. I cried out, "Oh, I am dying, I am dying." But afterwards I was filled with great joy. The devotees listened breathlessly to these experiences of the Master. Master said to Girish, "But it is not necessary for you to go so far. My experiences are for others to refer to. You busy yourself with 5 different things, but I have one ideal only. I don't enjoy anything but God. This is what God has ordained for me." Smilingly, he said, "There are different trees in the forest, some shooting up with one trunk and others spreading out with 5 branches. Yes, my experiences are for others to refer to, but you should live in the world in a spirit of detachment. You will no doubt have dirt on your body, but you must shake it off as a mudfish shakes off the mud. You may swim in the black ocean of the world, but your body should not be stained." Girish said smilingly, "But you too had to marry." Laughter. Master said smilingly, "Marriage is necessary for the sake of samskara. According to Hindu religious law, marriage is one of the 10 samskaras, or the purificatory rites prescribed for the 3 higher castes, namely the Brahmin, Kshatriya and Vaishya. So marriage is necessary for the sake of samskara. But how could I lead a worldly life? So uncontrollable was my divine fervor that every time the sacred thread was put around my neck, it dropped off. Some believe that Shukdev also had to marry for the sake of samskara. They say he even had a daughter. All laugh. Lust and gold alone is the world. It makes one forget God." Let us stop here. Now your session. All questions are invited. You are welcome to ask questions. You are welcome to make comments. Yeah, but he remained a perfect devotee. That's all. He is not one of the monastic members. No, not much. Undoubtedly, without a trace of doubt. All the happiness that you get in the world, that's just cheap. Any more? Any questions? Din Ann, do you have any question? No question at all. Leo? Very good. So, the easiest way which can be practiced by anybody without any condition has been given by Sri Ramakrishna, that is, surrender everything at the feet of God. Then you will be most happy person in this world. Have that ideal and follow the technique of how to surrender yourself totally. You have to fix the target, then you must work for it. But in and through everyday life, you must always be aware of your spiritual goal. You must never forget. Then only, even though you are engaged in secular type of activities, because of your constant remembering spiritual ideal, so the secular activity also gets transformed into spiritual practice. You want to ask something? No, that matter I referred to in my talk today. See, in order to give peace and in order to show the ideal to them, they suffer. In order to follow the natural law, they suffer. And but suffering, the great men suffering, they are burning out the debts. Somebody has to pay back the loan, you know. If A is not able to pay back, on his behalf, B will pay the loan back. It is just like that. So God is suffering on account of the devotees. And so that is the way how the devotees would feel tremendous love and affection towards God. And mother, how much mother suffers for the sake of child. So the child should know how much mother is suffering for my sake. And it's all connected with yajna. That's what I dealt with, that subject, yajna. So it is just like that. In order to show, in order to sublimate your suffering. Suffering is there, but suffering has got many objectives. One suffering drives you more and more into the world. Another way of suffering, it opens your heart, and suffering paves the way for spiritual life. Otherwise you think unreal to be real. You want to be always playing with the toy. You have to realize one day it is just a toy. So suffering has got its objective. Suffering comes to give an awakening, to give a spiritual awakening. But many people don't understand the meaning. So what? That means suffering continues to come till they understand. That's all. Suffering ceases only when you realize the reality. Until then, in one way or other, you will be suffering. Any dissatisfaction is considered as suffering. So how many times we are dissatisfied every day for all petty things and things like that? And in order to get into real peace, we have to divert your mind from all such things. Anything? That only shows that they have to become selfless. Everything has to go through proper training. Or we shall stop. Chant the name of the Lord and His glory unceasingly, that the mirror of the heart may be wiped clean, and quench that mighty forest fire, worldly lust, raging furiously within. O name streamed down in moonlight on the lotus heart, opening its cup to knowledge of thyself. O self, drowned deep in the waves of his bliss, tasting his nectar at every step, bathing in his name that bath for weary souls. Various are thy names, O Lord, in each and every name thy power resides. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name. So vast is thy mercy, how huge then is my wretchedness, who find in this empty life and heart no devotion to thy name. O my mind, be humbler than a blade of grass. Be patient and forbearing like a tree. Take no honor to thyself, give honor to all. Chant unceasingly the name of the Lord. O Lord and soul of the universe, mine is no prayer for wealth or retinue, the playthings of lust or the ties of fame. As many times as I may be reborn, grant me, O Lord, a steadfast love for thee. A drowning man in this world's fearful ocean is thy servant, O sweet one. In thy mercy, consider him as dust beneath thy feet. How I long for the day when an instant's separation from thee, O Lord, will be as 1,000 years, when my heart burns away with its desire, and the world without thee is a heartless void. Prostrate at thy feet let me be, in unwavering devotion, neither imploring the embrace of thine arms, nor bewailing the withdrawal of thy presence, though it tears my soul asunder. O thou, who stillest the hearts of thy devotees, do with me what thou wilt, for thou art my heart's beloved, thou and thou alone. O Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, and lead us from death to immortality. May all be free from dangers, may all realize what is good, may all be actuated by noble thoughts, may all rejoice everywhere. May all be happy, may all be free from disease, may all realize what is good, may none be subject to misery. May the wicked become virtuous, may the virtuous reign tranquility, may the tranquil be free from bonds, may the freed make others free. May good betide all people, may the sovereign righteously rule the earth, may all beings ever attain what is good, may the worlds be prosperous and happy. May the clouds pour rain in time, may the earth be blessed with crops, may all countries be freed from calamity, may holy men live without fear. May the Lord, the destroyer of sins, the presiding deity of all sacred works, be satisfied, for he being pleased, the whole universe becomes pleased. He being satisfied, the whole universe feels satisfied.